Welcome back. Today I want to talk about Dr. Iain McGill Christ, who is a neurosurgeon and a genius, and 3 books which he wrote which shed light on the left and the right hemisphere. These are brilliant works, and it's really worth our time to take a look at this, especially as it applies to meditation. So let's get into it. So Dr. McGill Christ's story is really phenomenal. It started out with music and poetry. He was fascinated with a poem which really moved him in a deep way. And so he tried to analyze it and figure out exactly how had the poet put together the meaning which stirred his heart so deeply. And as he continued to focus and focus and focus his attention on the poem and break it apart and break it down, he realized that the farther he broke it down, the farther he got away from the spirit which had moved him in the poem. And you can see this in music as well. It's not the note which stirs your heart. It's the space between the notes and the harmony between them that stirs your heart so deeply. And he became fascinated with that. Normally, if you're fascinated with something of that sort, you become an armchair expert, perhaps. Well, not Dr. McGill Christ. He decided to become a neurosurgeon so he could further explore this sense of meaning. The idea of the left and right hemisphere has gone out of vogue. It had a big, blooming entrance on the world stage. Doctors started prescribing a lot of meaning to the left and right hemisphere, and as they began to look at the brain, they realized that functions could take place on either side of the brain. So I speak a lot about language being in the left hemisphere, but the truth of the matter is that language is processed on both sides simultaneously. And what the good doctor has pointed out, which is so brilliant, is it's not a question of what. We've been asking the wrong question. It's not what the left brain and the right brain does. It's how it does it. It's as if each side has its own personality and its own way of doing things. And that's the right question. So you can argue a lot that all of these things are non-consequential because the left and the right both do the same things. But here's the argument that you just can't get around. When someone develops, unfortunately, a lesion on either side of the brain and one side of the brain stops to function correctly, we then see that these sides of the brain do matter, and it makes a huge impact when you're not able to use them correctly. Somebody who has a lesion on the right side of the brain, for example, cannot see the body on the left side because the right brain has to do with the left side of the body. This patient saw his organs as segmented pieces of wood, which he then encapsulated tried to piece together as a whole. But you see, it's the right brain that sees everything as a whole. So he could no longer perceive his left side of his body as being a whole, but instead as being segmented pieces. So the division of the left and the right brain and how they do things really comes out in the study of brain lesions. And that's what Dr. McGill Christ has studied for a very long time. He's written 3 important works, and I want to give you those books in order so that you don't dive into the really big book, which is a lot to handle all at once. So I recommend that you start with the first book called The Divided Brain. And this is a 100-word essay where he outlines his whole thesis. And once you've read that, I highly recommend Ways of Attending. And that's just a lovely, very, very short, it's another, I think it's slightly longer essay. Both of those are a fantastic introduction. So if you just want to get the overall picture of what Iain McGill Christ has to say, those are the two books that you want to read. And if you have to pick one of those books, I would recommend Ways of Attending. It's still very short, it's very readable, and gives you an overarching picture of what the doctor has to say. Now, if you've read those two and you want to dive into all of the research and all of the citations which back up his findings, then you want to read The Master and His Emissary. And the title comes from a lovely story that the doctor talks about at the very beginning. The story goes like this, that there was a rich master who had a number of servants, and to the servant that was the most competent, he gave him a lot of freedom, let him do the work, let him sign contracts, let him lend the money, everything that was to do with the master's business. He gave control of it to his emissary with a lot of trust and a lot of understanding. And over time, this emissary got a big head and he said, well, I'm doing everything, I'm doing all the work. Why is he the master and I'm the emissary? Why is he the master and I'm the slave? This doesn't make sense. And so he took over. He took control of the company. He took control of all of his master's finances. And he said, I am the king. You are the servant now. You must do what I say. And this is a very old story which has been repeated over time. And it's telling us something about the left and the right brain. Those are the left and right brain, and that is what's happened to us in modern society. We have abandoned identification with the master, and we have taken up identification with the servant instead. So that's the underlying theme and the story that Iain McGill Christ would like to tell us. And he does so brilliantly. And one of my favorite parts, he talks about how a bird will pick a seed on the floor. So when the bird looks down at the seed, you understand that the left brain is connected with the right eye, and the left eye is connected with the right brain. So the eyes are cross-connected and the body is cross-connected as well. So when a bird looks down at a seed, it will do it with its left brain. And it will look with its right eye as it looks down at the seed. And you'll see that the bird has the eye on the side of his face, right? So he'll turn his head and he'll look down at the seed that he's going to peck, and then he'll peck at it. All with the right eye, which is the left brain. Because the focus of the left brain is like this. It's very focused. Now, if you're a bird and you have to worry constantly about predators, when you are focused like this on one thing, you're not paying attention to everything that is around you. And that's a danger. That makes you vulnerable. And so nature has come up with an answer. And the answer is the right side of the brain. So while the bird is concentrated on that one piece of thing, it's a very demanding task, whatever it's doing. It has to put all of its attention on the seed in order to eat and feed itself and survive. But at the same time, we need a backup program. We need something going on simultaneously, and nature says the right side of the brain will be continuously scanning the entire environment around us to make sure nothing's going to come and eat us while we're focused on that one little seed. So while the left brain is looking at the one seed using all of its faculties, the right brain is using all of its faculties to pay attention to everything around it simultaneously. Not here and here and here and here, but all of it in one grand picture. Isn't that amazing? It's very much like the left brain is a child at work and play. And while it's working and playing, the parent never leaves its side. It is there constantly, continuously, looking over in a parental fashion with a bigger, more expansive view of life and what has to happen. And that's the right side of the brain. The left side of the brain as a personality is dominated by things. It loves all kinds of things it can understand. And when it sees a larger whole, it takes the whole and it breaks it down in order to understand it. It breaks it down into pieces which are manageable. And of course, we need both of these functions at the same time in order to survive. We can't survive. It's not that one is bad and one is good. We need both, but we ought to understand how they work. The right side of the brain is all about connection and humanness, the space between you and I, what makes us a whole. It is preoccupied with humanness, what makes us human and connected. The right brain is the parental figure in our lives. It is the window by which the higher self guides and inspires our lives. So, can we have an experience of that? We've talked about it today. Let's have a quick experience of it if we can. And the way that I like to teach to jump out of the left side of the brain and into, get a taste of the right side of the brain, is to concentrate on 2 points at the same time. So that could be your 2 shoulders, or your 2 hands, or your 2 ears, whatever is far enough apart that it becomes 2. It doesn't have to be in your body, it can be outside of your body. It can be the corner of this wall and the corner of that wall. Any 2 points, if we can concentrate, it could be your feet and the top of your head. Any 2 points, if you can concentrate simultaneously and hold the 2 as one, just like the 2 notes that make a whole. Hold the 2 as one in your mind simultaneously. It may help to breathe with a reduced breath rate. I talk a lot about a reduced breath rate here. So let's do a little bit of a reduced breath rate. Concentrate on any 2 points that you choose. It has to be far enough apart that you can notice that it's 2 separate things. Hold them simultaneously in yogic union inside your perception so that you can experience the right hippocampus, which is spatial. So we're using a neurological driver, that is a spatial perception, to transfer us into the right side of the brain. So let's try that. So I hope you guys will give those 2 short books a read, maybe the third one if you have the interest. They're really fascinating. This is renowned and celebrated doctor who is probably the first or second most informed person on the left and right side of the brain in the world today. So I hope you'll give him a read. He's really fascinating. He's a genius. And I hope you'll give that little technique a try in your meditations. It's a great preparation or ending technique to whatever technique you happen to be using to meditate with. And if you noticed, while you hold those 2 perceptions simultaneously in your mind, there's no words. You can't hold 2 perceptions in your perception simultaneously and think linguistic words at the same time. You can't do it. I hope this was valuable for you guys. If it was, hit subscribe, hit that little bell down there so you can catch me next time. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you around.